1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Ground Up Podcast. My name is Matt Walton, here with my co-host Matt Huber. Matt, how you doing?
Great, man. How are you?
Good. Back in the office again. He's been traveling for a little while.
Ooh, I tell you, the road is not my friend. Love the fact that I don't have a traveling salesperson job any longer. That is absolutely for the younger version of me. Yes, glad to sleep in my own home and in my own bed and to take a shower in my own shower. It was a beautiful thing last night.
Yeah, I'm a homebody too. I like to be at home. That's where I like to stay. Good thing that we can do business and talk to people around the world right now because we don't have to travel. To our next guest over here, a guy named Jonathan out of Knoxville, Tennessee. Jonathan, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys? I tell you what, it makes it easy to remember names when it's Matt and Matt.
Exactly.
With two
Spells
Matts.
it's weird. Way he spells it's weird, but yeah.
I noticed that, but I wasn't going to judge. I wasn't going to judge that.
My dad misspelled my name on my birth certificate, so that's how I am now.
I just thought you were very to the point, Matt.
Yeah. No extra fluff. all
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No extra. There's just directly to the point.
Exactly. That's how it goes. Awesome, man. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate that. And so tell us a little about what you're doing over at Elite Robotics right now.
Yeah, so I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing for Elite Robotics. I've been here since February, and came on board to an organization. What we like to say is we're a $25 million startup. So we've been an established company for about 10 years, and really we're looking to take it to the next level. So I came on board a new CEO, and we've been just continually pouring into the team, doing some things differently and seeing how we can serve customers through selling robots.
Yeah, I think one of the best things is that, you being the VP of Sales and Marketing, Matt actually found out about you through your content, which I think is crazy. It's awesome to see that because a lot of people don't, especially like VP of Sales and Marketing. I feel like now it's more important to have a presence and to show that you can do that, because I feel like if you can't do it for yourself, how can you do it for somebody else? I mean, Matt, do you agree with that? I mean, you came up with it and saw him through that too.
Yeah, I mean, and it's been a learning curve for us too. I mean, I was that sales guy who didn't mind recognition inside of my organization, but I was never one of those self-promoting guys, and I didn't want to have my thoughts, my concepts on social media, but I had to adjust. Social media is such a big part of the landscape, and it offers it offers credibility. And for me, having to put myself out there and teach not just the people that are within my team, but teach people outside of that, I think it makes you better across the board. Now, Jonathan, I mean, is that something that's always come natural to you, like putting yourself on social media, or was it a similar adjustment for you?
It's actually been a very long journey for me. I've always loved to write. So there was always an aspect ever since a kid, growing up, writing short stories, poetry, stuff like that. My grandma wrote a book when she was living with us about her life, kind of an autobiography. So I've always kind of been around writing. And so in 2015, I started my first blog called What the Sell, The Life of a Professional Salesman, and really kind of started putting myself out there and writing some stories about things that I was experiencing in sales, lessons that I had learned, how I was targeting new business. And I would love to tell you guys that at the beginning of that journey, there was a lot of support. There was a lot of people throwing rocks, right? There was a lot of shade, and even having previous bosses and leaders making up fake email addresses to put stuff on my blog and just write, honestly, some horrible stuff. But through that, what I started learning was that there's an audience out there that needs it, and that really you can kind of help them become better at their craft and what they're doing in sales. And so it went from writing a blog to starting to make some videos. And the next thing, it just became a part of kind of how I built familiarity with not only the customers I wanted to serve, but also other colleagues and industry people. And it's really been a game changer for my career. But it started off painful. I look back at some of those first videos, and they're pretty awful. And I've learned a lot, and to me now, that's a big part of what our sales and marketing strategy is at Elite Robotics, is doing a lot more content and really helping promote our sales professionals, our internal employees to build their personal and professional brands and become almost, I guess, to use a term, a micro influencer in the industry that they work in.
That's all. I want to jump on that in just a second, but I want to give you massive kudos because a lot of people would have quit, especially if they're like people they know that were attacking them like that. It's funny because You hear, I was watching the podcast Mr. Beast a long time ago, and he started off and he said, "How many people called me crazy until I was successful, and now I'm a genius." And it's like, and that's you have to go through, and you look back at the videos you first start, and like, wow, I sounded terrible. My video was terrible.
So bad.
Everything was so bad. Like, I can't believe I even put this out there, but you did, and you kept doing it, even though you had people in your own organization. I mean, clearly that's pure like jealousy and just hate and just couldn't do it. But I mean, you pushed through that. So obviously, thank you. Everyone that watched your content thanks you for that. So that's awesome.
Man, it really became one of those things, Matt, where that's where my passion for leadership came from. It really became one of those things. I remember when I was writing my first book, my wife, came to me, and I was kind of sharing with her a little bit of anxiety and a little bit of stress around it. What if nobody buys it? What if it sucks? Like I've now put myself out there like that to have people buy a book. And I remember what she said to me. She said, "John, if one person reads your book and it makes a positive impact on their life, was it worth it?" And I look back, man, and that's kind of been a driving force behind it. It's like, I know my content isn't for everybody. I know my energy isn't for everybody, but for the right body, it might be that thing that helps move them in a positive direction. And it's really just become one of the ways that I get to help encourage people in an industry that I love working in, which is sales.
How would you explain, Jonathan, like in your own words, like the type of message you want to put out? Like, what is your message when you like say, like, if somebody who's not watched me says, "What is Jonathan's content about?" What is the message that you want it to be?
Yeah, so I approach my content as if you're having a conversation with your coach. Coach, you travel softball. I approach how I lead as a coach. And so if you're somebody who likes, it's not going to be fluffy. It's going to be a little bit more direct. It's going to be encouraging. But if you want to learn a resilient mindset, if you want to learn how sales is one of the truest acts of service that there is, and how to go about making an impact regardless of your position or profession in sales, then that's what you're going to get for me. That's really my message is I focus a lot around having the mindset of an athlete and just having that willingness to make mistakes and to continue to show up and be consistent and be a sales professional. If we're going to call ourselves professionals, then we should prepare and practice like professionals. And to me, that ultimately leads down to attitude, effort, compete, which is kind of my coaching mantra and my leadership mantra, because our attitude determines our effort and our effort determines how we compete. And what competing means is doing our best to be our best at anything we give our time, energy, and attention to. And so that comes through a lot in my content. Lessons I've learned coaching softball, my whole sales strategy comes from the movie Moneyball and watching it for like the 17th time. That's where my book came from. And so you get a nice little mix of sales, leadership, mindset, sports, and all about helping us show up better so we can serve at a higher level.
I'm curious to know, do you think that people who were athletes make the best salespeople? And can you have somebody who wasn't an athlete become a great salesperson?
Yeah, I think there are attributes that high-level athletes or people who have been in athletics naturally bring. Now, again, none of those attributes overarch the umbrella that I believe, or the foundation that I believe is the most important thing, which is attitude, effort, compete. So for me, there's attributes that athletes bring to the table. There's a consistency. There's a working on their craft, especially once you get into collegiate or professional athletes. I've got a lot of friends who have played in the NFL, Major League Baseball, those types of things. That's what I went to school for, I was an exercise science major. I was going to be a strength coach. And so, but I believe those attributes are there, but those are attributes that are learned and coached and held accountable for a long period of time to where it becomes naturally how they show up. And I think anybody has the ability to be an incredible salesperson when their mindset is, this is not me trying to get something from someone. This is me trying to serve someone. And then you help put in place those things that grow those attributes and develop them so that they can go out and like I say, serve at a high level.
So when you're hiring people, sorry, Matt, when they're hiring people, I mean, is there something you look for specifically when you're going to hire somebody? I mean, obviously you're coaching people up from everything. When we hire, me and Matt do, for virtual assistants in our business that we have over here, and we look for people who don't have a crazy resume. And in fact, we don't really care about your resume. We don't look at it. We care about people who have a growth mindset, somebody who can be coachable, someone who can be self-aware and can grow into somebody that we can help train to get to that point. You look in the same way, or are you looking for specific traits or resumes, or how are you going about your hiring process?
Yeah, so a lot of how I hire is very similar to what it sounds like you guys do. I'm not a big resume person. I didn't come from the industry that I work in, and I've always had to take that obstacle of, well, you're not an engineer, you don't have this crazy technical background. And there was a quote I heard, it's by a pastor, I can't remember his name, but he said, a resume will tell you where I've been, but it doesn't tell you where I'm going. And so for me, I like getting a context of a background from someone, from their words. So when I'm in an interview, I don't ask them, hey, tell me about your previous history, tell me about the previous work you've done. I ask them to actually tell me your story. Tell me your story, and where are you trying to go? Like, what is your ultimate destination? Because I don't want to bring people on my team that don't have a vision for their life or where they're trying to go or where they're trying to accomplish, because it's so hard to impact them in a positive way because you don't know which direction to help guide them. And so for me, it's, again, do you have a great attitude? Do you display through our conversation like effort? Like, do you send a thank you email? Do you send a follow-up text? Do you connect with me on LinkedIn? Like, there's these little effort things that I see that I'm like, oh, if I hired this person, that's how he's going to be pursuing customers. There's going to be this purposeful pursuit of relationship. And so for me, those are kind of the things that stick out. The background, what they've done before they've come to me, I could really care less.
Matt's been smiling the whole time. I think you're speaking his language over here.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan, like, you and I are the same man. I can just tell you that. Like, every single thing you say. So you had attitude, effort, compete. My concept I teach is pitch, pace, attitude. And it sounds like a sales thing, and it is a sales thing, but it's a life thing. It's like, there's the three things that we can control, and only those three things in which we can control in sales. And it's either your pitch, it's your pace, or it's your attitude. And there's never anything other than because if it is, why are we focusing on it, right? And one of the things you say, I always have said that I'm not a manager. My title might say manager, but if I am looked at as somebody's manager, I've done something wrong. I want to be viewed as a coach. I prefer the title of a mentor, coach, ever a manager, because there is that negative concept of they're a micromanager. For me, I say, hey, I'm a micro coacher, and you need to be micro coached, but not every individual needs to be coached the same way.
That's good.
And
micro coaching. I like that.
If you are the person who has the vision of what you want to be, then you should have no problem with a leader who is invested into coaching you as much as you need to be able to be what it is. So as Matt said, like, yeah, when we're looking for candidates, we're looking for people with thick skin or mental toughness. I think that's a key attribute to salespeople.
Agreed.
Because in most sales roles, a high volume of rejection, and you got to be able to deal with rejection well. Number two, we look for people who have a student mentality because we're looking to grow future leaders. We're not looking to hire leaders. We're looking to develop leaders. And we look for people who are self-aware. And if you don't know what your strengths are, you don't know what your weaknesses are, even if you have the most student mentality, you don't know what to go seek help on. And so for me, one of the things I've always said is I've always been lucky in my sales leadership role. Is every sales role I've ever been in, probably like you, and Matt's the same, is I've always been a great individual contributor. But I've always also seen all of these other great individual contributors get hoisted into a leadership role and they drowned because they don't have a system to teach people how to maximize their talents, not just hire people that are just like them and be able to take the people where they are. I also come from a sports background. I'm also a very, very big watcher and student of sports. And I look at it like I think of the NBA. Is Michael Jordan the best head coach or the best owner ever? No, because he doesn't know how to put his talent into other people's shoes. Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, these greats, none of them have been great head coaches. But when we look at Steve Kerr, Phil Jackson, Greg Popovich, all these guys who are greats, it's because they've created a system. Phil Jackson had a triangle offense. Steve Kerr had a motion offense. They weren't great individuals themselves, but they were able to create a great system to be able to maximize the stars, but get the most out of the role players. when you're talking, I hear all of those things. I wrote your line down. A resume will only tell where somebody's been, not where they're going. And I love it. So yes, everything you're saying, as the smiles go on my face, Natalia, when she did this interview with you before this, she wrote down there, Matt, you're this guy and you are speaking the same language. It's going to be great. And man, from two different backgrounds, from two different worlds, I would tell you, if we look back at I've got 20 years of sales experience. I would assume you and I are in the same range, which Matt gets mad at me because I always put him in my range, but he's 10 years younger than me. We came from two different places. I come from an automotive background. I came as a top individual contributor. I grew organically in a sales role. I'd love to know, when you started the What to Sell blog and then you were doing the individual roles, where did your sales experience start to get you to where you are now? Because it's so interesting how you've gotten to where you are. We're both very similar spots, but I would guess our story is very different.
Yeah, and something I want to go back to quickly, Matt, if it's okay before I answer that, is you mentioned something about, Larry Bird, some of those guys not being the best coaches, right? But then you mentioned, Steve Kerr, Phil Jackson. What I find really interesting about Steve Kerr, especially when you look at the Warriors and some of those coaches that have come out and been incredibly successful who were previous players, were the role players. Steve Kerr was a role player. Steve Kerr was never the center of the offense, but it was his job to show up with a great attitude, to give great effort, and to compete and to make an impact in his role. But he knew his job was to be his best so that he can make the other people around him better. It was never self-focused, where I think a lot of times high-level achievers oftentimes get very self-focused because they know that burden of achievement is put on their shoulders. And so the concept of elevating everybody around them, there's talk about, Kobe talks about it, Jordan talks about it, but the level of doing that is more so to maximize what they bring to the table versus what everybody else brings to the table, in my opinion. And so I've not thought about that until this moment. That'd be a really interesting thing to look at, especially in the NBA or even in the NFL, really high-level talent who goes into coaching versus role players that go into coaching, and the success difference between the two.
I think your point you made there is also probably not anything I've ever specifically looked at, but the word around selfishness. And I think that as a great coach, and like what you just meant, is your thought process around coaching is serving. And there's a selflessness that has to be in that to be able to have that. If you are only focusing on your own self, and there is a level of healthy selfishness that requires great to be great. And I think that's probably one of the biggest differences is Steve Kerr was never able to be selfish because he was never in the role to be selfish. But your Kobe's, your Magics, your Michaels, all were able to be selfish. And that is why they probably have difficulty adjusting to the selflessness of putting themselves in other people's shoes. That word sticks out to me there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So going back to the question, and what was that background like coming up through sales? So after I graduated school, was doing a lot of training, and then got into leading a personal training studio. And so a big part of leading that personal training studio at this club I was working at in Los Angeles was learning how to sell personal training and help close personal training. So that's really when my sales development started. And as I started working my way up through the fitness industry into different leadership roles, I was going out and learning how to cold call. I mean, back in the day in the fitness industry, we did guerrilla marketing, right? We were doing door hangers. We were going to Walmart with paper contracts, looking to see if we could sign people up for gyms. It was all outward focused to generate more activity and traffic into the gym. So that transition into B2B sales in 2010 there was a lot that I was already comfortable with because being told no was just normal. And it was just a part of it, right? And so I really had kind of grown a pretty tough skin to that, just realizing, all right, no, let's just move on to the next one. When I got into B2B sales, my skill set really started gearing towards business development, and they put me in a role that was newly created, which was a business development role, and all I did was go out and open new business and then hand it off to a territory manager to manage it at that point. And that started garnering a lot of attention in what I was doing, and I got recruited to another company. And every situation I've been brought into, for the most part, it's been like, hey, we're underperforming here. We need a really high achiever to come in and make an impact. And that has always been kind of a role that I play, which, to be honest, sometimes gets a little tiring, because it's like, man, I love fixing things, but sometimes it would be nice to just be able to execute without fixing first. But, you know, there came a point where I really wanted to start being more of a leader. I wanted that role and responsibility of being a leader. And it was an eye-opening moment for me. It was a conversation in 2014 with a guy by the name of Matt Johnston, who's the CSCO for a company called MidLab. And Matt and I are friends, and he was kind of mentoring me in some areas. And I remember sharing with him how badly I wanted to be a leader and how I wanted a sales manager role and all this. And he said, JD, you're a leader, man, even without the title. When you walk into a room, when you're working with somebody, man, people naturally gravitate to you because of the energy you bring and the excitement you bring. He was like, when you can start viewing even the role you're in now as a leadership role where you can start helping make the people around you better, he was like, you'll never need the title because you'll just lead regardless of where you are, no matter what you're doing. And that created a real shift in me, which I think opened up that willingness to start seeing how I could make those around me better, which ended up radically progressing my career into some of the roles that I've been able to have, because its mentality kind of really came out and be like, man, I can make an impact so much in a company or on my sales plan or whatever. But if I want our team to be great, if I want us to be the best freaking sales team selling these things that anybody has ever seen, then I need a really great team around me. And so how can I help fill in those gaps or walk alongside people and help them become stronger in some of those areas that maybe they aren't?
That's awesome. Because we've talked about a little bit, the best players don't make the best coaches necessarily, but you know, obviously you have to perform and be able to perform when you're doing things also. But what we look for people who want to move up to managers positions or leadership positions within our company is, do your peers agree that if you got promoted right now, do they see like, yeah, that makes sense? Or they're like, why is this person promoted? You know, if they're questioning your promotion, you probably didn't do a good job of leading other people in the first place. So you shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I think if you're waiting to be a leader when that title is hoisted upon you, you're not a leader. You know, and I think that for me, when I hear you say that, how bad I wanted to be a leader, I think that's something that's, to me, such a refreshing thing. I think that one of the challenges that I see in general society right now is people don't know what they want and they don't know what to go chase. And just the idea of knowing, I want to be a leader, I want to be able to have that impact, I want to be able to do something more than just serve myself. Once again, I think that's a great personality trait for anybody to have. Is that something you think was just natural in you, Jonathan, or it was just that next obstacle in your growth?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both, Matt. I think there was a lot of me. Look, I came from a pretty rough upbringing, you know. My mom didn't get out of bed for several years when we moved to Indiana, and my sister and I, I had my first job at 12 years old bussing tables at a place called Chicken Shack in Winchester, Indiana. No longer exists, but that was to help pay bills and buy groceries. So it was almost like there was this innate need to survive that really drove me to whatever it was that I was working at that was going to be able to earn me the ability to eat dinner and to keep my lights on. I was going to do that as hard as I possibly could. And so I think there's a natural tendency to selfishness, to want to only protect and take care of self. One of the things that I've always noticed and that others have noticed about me in my life, which is, I'm so grateful I've had people speak into it, is just my ability to build relationships with people. And when I meet someone, my wife has to tell me, she's like, hey, we're going to the grocery store. Can you please not get into a, super serious, deep conversation with someone? Because there's just this, and I see people, man. I believe in the best of others. I believe in the goodness and the potential in other people, and I always have. And so I think that created a little bit of a paradigm in me, or a little bit of dichotomy in me of like, man, there's this selfish pursuit here, but in sales, and it feels like everything is about my commission check and about what I'm achieving. But man, that seems so empty of a pursuit. There's got to be something more to this, and I love doing this. So it really became this pursuit of purpose in my profession, and seeing how I could find more purpose in sales. And really that's what kind of shifted me, because it no longer became about what I was selling. It became about who I was serving and building those relationships with, man. And that's a big part of how I recruit salespeople also, is if you're in it just because you want to make a ton of money, and I'm a capitalist, I believe in it. Like, make as much money as you can. I believe there is a way you can serve and bring a lot of purpose into your role that is going, the big commission checks are the outcome of a purposeful pursuit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the best people and the most successful people, they think, how can I help someone versus how can I help myself? I mean, obviously that comes along with it. It's funny you say that with your wife saying that. My wife calls me a professional yapper. Is what she says to me, because I go out and I talk to as many people as I can. But so I want to focus on that because
Hold on, before you switch off that, I want to double click on this part too. Because Jonathan, it sounds like you're a very extroverted person, very easy to talk to. Matt has a lot of that in him. But I also want to speak to the people who aren't that, because I'm not that. You put me in a room with a bunch of strangers, I have zero interest in small talk. I am awkward as hell in a social setting. You put me in a small group, I'll still be the most talkative person in a small, comfortable group. But I go to the gym. I've gone to the same gym for the past 4 years. I've talked to literally not one single person in that gym. And I have zero interest in it. You go to the grocery store, I have zero interest. I'm friendly. Hi, how you doing? How you doing? Like those things, but I don't want to get into a conversation. And so I emphasize that, not to say that my personality is right or Jonathan, your personality is right. I think most salespeople lean towards you and Matt's personality, but that is not a characteristic or a personality trait of somebody who has to have this to be able to be good at sales, or to be able to be successful in these things. Sorry to cut you off, Matt. I just wanted to emphasize that, because I think a lot of people think salespeople are just naturally outgoing and charismatic. And you make me go to a trade show, I am miserable. I do not want to do that at all. Now, if it's a task-based thing where, okay, you go cold call on every single person that walks by you, cool, I can do the task, but I don't want to do that in my personal life.
Yeah,
So,
and something to that, Matt, is I am a very extroverted person, but I've also learned very much so that I'm 42, been in sales for 20 years. My gas tank has an empty. And what I find is that in my personal life I'm a little bit more reserved. I'm a little bit more introverted, because everything that I do outside of my home is very extroverted. When coaching, softball, speaking, writing, everything is very extroverted, that I have to find times. And there are times that I will pull away because I'm overly spent in there. And so there's a caveat, because that's just a skill, that's just a characteristic or an attribute of my personality. Learning how to use it has allowed me to be a little bit more successful in sales. It's also something that comes at a great cost of energy, and learning how to renew that energy becomes pretty important, because if not, I don't show up very well.
No, I think there's probably some a way of a name for all these different types of extroverts and introverts, and I feel the same way. I'm never going to be the life of the party. I'm not a person who stands out in front of everybody. I can have good conversations with one-on-one people, and if I just happen to strike up a conversation about something I see, I can do that all day long. But if you ask me to stand up in front of a big crowd and make a fool of myself and do that, I'm not that person either. So yeah, it's kind of in between. I'm sure there's some kind of correct term for all that.
I think it ties back to self-awareness too. And I think that's the most important thing, is just understanding what your strengths are and weaknesses are. Because you put me in front of a room of 300 people and say, do this keynote speech, I have zero problem with that. I have zero nerves, zero discomfort. A lot of people who are even extroverted would be scared to death of that. But I think that at the end of the day, it's just knowing what you are, knowing who you are, being self-aware, and just accepting that, and then finding the path based off of those personality traits and based off who you are.
Yeah.
Matt, I know I cut you off earlier. I don't know if you were taking it somewhere else.
Now that place I was taking it, let's think for a second. Yeah, so it was more along the lines of when you're starting these conversations with people. I mean, when you have a purpose from all of them in general, it's like, it's just like having something catches your eye with something to do, and you're like, hey, let me just speak on that. It's something where like you speak to every person and you're trying to build a relationship on purpose with them.
Yeah, so this is a little bit more difficult answer. It's just not going to connect with everybody when I say it. My faith is a big part of who I am and how I show up, right? Like, my relationship with God is the most important thing to me, and I do my best to show up in that to the best of my ability. And before I go into big rooms, before I go into conferences, before I even go into a customer meeting, I say a prayer and I'm just like, okay, God, I know you're going to show me who I need to build relationships with and who I need to love the way that they need to be loved today. And I just believe you're going to make those conversations happen with the right people at the right time. And it has nothing to do with me, and it has nothing to do with whether or not they buy from me or anything like that. It's a prayer I have to say because that's part of how I get my heart in the right posture and how I get my mindset not focus on what it sounds flippant to say, not what I'm trying to achieve, but the goal is to go in there in any sales call or in any conference or networking event, whatever it is, and make sure that I'm able to make the impact that I'm there to make. And I believe the right people are going to be highlighted to me, and I'm going to see them, and we're going to connect, whether that means I've got to be a little bit more courageous by going over and reaching out or talking, or that means I've got to be a little bit more patient because I know I see that they're making their way towards me, and also, making sure in that helps me listen more than I talk. Maybe not everybody may connect with that, but that for me, that's what makes those conferences and those things impactful, is because I know I'm going to be meeting the right people at the right time, and I'm there for a reason, and it has nothing to do with me.
It's awesome. And where I was going with before this was, helping people, focus on helping people. And that's something that the most successful people do. They always say, hey, I want to focus on solving a problem that helps people out and get to where they need to go. One of the things I see constantly within, for example, my industry of wholesaling, real estate wholesaling is what I do, and me and my wife build a business off of. We see so many people jump into it. I mean, there's so many gurus out there and people that talk about, hey, this is flip this property and you get a $10,000 check in your pocket and you can do this in 3 hours, things like that, right? They do that all the time. And so people think like, okay, great, I'm going to go do that. There's so many people who come in it and they fail. And they suck because their idea in their head is, how am I going to get this check? Who am I going to get this check from? And they call grandma, and the grandma needs to sell their house, and they screw grandma over, and they get themselves a check, and then they can't build relationships off of that because they're so worried about what am I going to get versus the people who are successful in it. We focus on how can we help these people out in the situation? How can I help this grandma out in this situation who's struggling right now with their house, and I can help her get out of it into the right spot, get some money in her pocket? Or like when I work with real estate agents, how can I build a significant relationship with this real estate agent in order for us to continue to do business with each other? Because I know a lot of real estate agents struggle. Most of them do. I think 70% of them do less than a deal a year, or less a year. And so, how can I build that relationship where they can come back to me? And those are the people that continue to have success because they think on that mindset versus, how am I going to get my check? The checks will come if you help people out and you find a way to do that. And the fact that you do it faith-based is awesome.
Well, and I think too, again, I think there's this whole misconception around purpose, in my opinion. And I started out in B2B sales selling toilet paper and box tape, right? Janitorial supplies and packaging products. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to find a lot of purpose in selling toilet bowl cleaner. Yeah. I mean, just legitimately, it's like sell toilet paper and toilet bowl cleaner, and but what I coach a lot of people on now, and something that shifted for me was looking at the deepest impact that my efforts were making. And so, even going back to selling toilet bowl cleaner and toilet paper, a lot of my customers were nursing homes. And in those assisted living facilities, long-term care facilities, if the facilities aren't clean, then great grandma gets sick. Like, I grew up going to nursing homes, singing and playing guitar with my dad. It's always been my great grandma was in a nursing home, all of this stuff. And I remember going in there and for a while just kind of being like, man, I'm going to go sell trash bags in here today. But then starting to really understand that if the ladies who clean that facility don't have what they need, then they can't keep that facility clean, which means disease can spread, and grandma who's there may end up getting sick and passing away because they weren't in a facility that could keep clean. And what I do in the work today in building robotic systems for manufacturers, when I go to the grocery store, Food City, about 2 miles from my house, and I go in there, we go in there multiple times a day. And one of the places I always walk by, no matter how many times, is the bread aisle to see if Char's gluten-free bread is there. Because it's my wife and I's favorite gluten-free bread. And it's barely on the shelves. If people ask me, well, what do you do for a living? I answer them very directly is, Well, I help make sure that products that you love are on the shelves when you go to the grocery store. Because to me, that's the purpose behind what I do, is helping these manufacturers get their products to the people they love, who love them and need them. So I think there's a lot of people get into sales for the selfish ambition of making a ton of money. And there's no, like, I get it. In sales, you have the opportunity to do that. I think the gasoline that fuels that engine is very fleeting because it's very void of purpose or meaning.
Man, one of my testing questions I ask in the interview is, what is your primary motivation? And if a salesperson says money, I likely will not move forward with that person. Not that you can't make great money, but to your point, that is a fleeting thing. Like, there comes a point where you make more money where that's not the thing that's going to make you make 10 more cold calls or drive harder through that final objection on the sale or whatever that might be. Let me go back to a couple of things you said there, because I think that a lot that you said I want to double click on. Number one, you said both in your history, you've been a server, or you worked at a restaurant, and that you've done some version of the equivalent of like a B2B door-to-door cold calling thing. I would make it, if I was the president, if they said, Trump, you're out of here, Uber, you get in here, I would make it a mandatory thing that between the ages of 16 and 21, that every person must do both of those jobs for at least 6 months total. And through that, the government will fund them some sort of a grant based off of that. Because I think that the lessons you learn, both as a server, as a restaurant, in regards to how to treat people, and the lessons around rejection that you gain by doing a B2B door-to-door. I mean, my first main job in sales, I stood at the front of Sam's Clubs and I used to sling direct TV. I get 2,000 plus no's to the face all day with the objective of getting 10 people back to my table and getting 1 to 2 sales a day. That it built every aspect of what I am as a salesperson because of that. And if I never had that, I wouldn't be the man I am. I wouldn't be the husband I am. I wouldn't be the father I am. I wouldn't be the leader I am in my business. So I think that those things are, to me, the fact that you did those early in your career is not a coincidence to where you are today. And if I have the ability to prescribe a young person who doesn't know what to do and doesn't know what they want to be, go do 3 months as a server, go do 3 months in a door-to-door sales. You're not going to like it. You likely won't be good at it, but it's not about that. Go get that experience. You'll learn from it. Now, to me, Jonathan, and I think it's important for me to say, before you mentioned your faith was an important thing to you, it was already evident. That was clear. And I think that's important as myself, as a person who is faith-based and who wants to lead through that, my faith. You didn't need to tell me that before I knew that about you. And I think that's important for you to hear, because that's, as faith-based leaders, what we want to be, should be wanting to put out, which is that you need to know it without me saying it. And that you have that. So I want to make sure I say that to you. For me,
thank you.
Faith is freedom. And one of the guys asked me when I was going through a very, very difficult transition in my career, he said, Matt, what's your purpose? And man, that sat me down for about a week and a half. And it made me really just struggle with the challenge that I was having, where I was having opportunities that were paying me incredibly well, that were very fulfilling financially, but they weren't fulfilling the more important buckets. And I had what I would consider golden handcuffs. And that these companies were willing to give me everything from a financial goals perspective, but they weren't willing to give me the other things. And I had the opportunity to spend more time back in our business. And Matt and I had just started our business. I was allowing myself to be distracted in the growth of our business that we had together by these golden handcuff stuff. But man, when that question was asked for me, I probably walked for about 10 to 15 hours that week, really just self-reflecting, really, really going through it. And the great outcome of that is when I was able to walk away from the golden handcuffs, Matt and I's business was able to go from us having 20 employees to over 100 employees. We were able to go from having 2 leaders that we developed to over 10 leaders that we've developed inside of our business. And our business has grown exponentially due to me just having the faith in what we're building and the opportunity for us to build it, and knowing that I can always go find that corporate gig again if I want to, but I've got a real opportunity to make change inside of a business that Matt and I have created, and to just believe in myself, because that is what I believe my professional purpose was. Yep. I was limited in the growth that I can make and the ability for me to fulfill that purpose in the corporate structure. Some people can get that. At parts, I was able to get that in the corporate structure, but in my current seat I was sitting in, I was unable to. I knew I could create more opportunity to fulfill that purpose inside of my own business, and that's why I chased it. So Matt, real quick, Matt, went through that time with me. You saw me having those struggles. So just so you know, Jonathan, Matt at one point was a guy I hired as an entry-level employee like way long time ago. And then Matt did really well on that job. And then he decided, man, the corporate life isn't for me. I'm going to go be one of the most successful real estate wholesalers. And Matt and I kept in communication through that period. And then we kind of re-engaged about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And we kind of shared our experiences and brought our experience together. But Matt, for you, you've kind of seen that journey of me leaving the company we're at together, going to try to chase that again with other companies, and then us kind of building what we're doing. What was your perspective of that from the outside looking in?
Yeah, I saw you doing what I had done for a long time, and I've always known that I needed to work for myself. And I was the type of person who would do, I would do anything. Like I would do digital marketing, I would do day trading, I would do anything. I was like, I'm gonna find something else because I can't work for anybody. And Jonathan, when you were talking earlier, you said you found a purpose within your sales. Like even like selling toilet paper stuff. I used to sell Cutco when I first started selling. Like I was the first job I ever had in sales when I was 17 years old. And I never I never thought about it like, hey, let me find a purpose in selling knives. I was 17 years old, I didn't really care about that. And I was just like, all right, let me see what I can do. And I kept jumping from one sales job to another because I was like, all right, well, I hate working for somebody, but it'll be different this time. But I never actually sat there and was like, let me find a purpose within what I'm doing. I was just like, let me just do this job and it'll be different. And I was hoping the job would just be different and something like that. And then I worked for Matt, and Matt was one of the best leaders I've had because what he did was he brought you into the conversation. He wasn't like this is my way or the highway. I'm going to do this and you're just going to have to listen and follow. He was like, hey, this is what I'm planning on doing. Let's work together towards this and give me your suggestions. Even if you didn't go with it, he built it like that. But again, I found real estate wholesaling after when I was working for them, and I was like, I don't want to work for anybody else. I can do this job. I know that I can do this. I can, it's something I can do with real estate. I've done a few transactions myself from just selling and buying my own houses. I know how I can do it. And I end up doing well on that. What I saw with Matt was doing what I was doing, was jumping from job to job, and not really jumping from job to job, but he kept having different jobs. And I was like, Matt, you are doing for other people what you could do for yourself. And I was like, I wouldn't tell him, I'm not telling him to quit a job because I'm never going to be that person because I don't know, what you have to do financially, but kept like suggesting like, Matt, like, I mean, you're spending a lot of time doing this. I mean, you have your own companies here. We could jump into this. And so I was excited for him to go through that. And he was kept struggling with his job that he had. And he was like, this is the problems I keep having. I'm like, I hear you. Like, I understand. But again, you're doing this for somebody else that you can do for yourself. And when he finally took that leap, I know he was worried about it. But I've seen it just change from there. He just obviously has a purpose. He has a growth. And then he's been going after what he's done for other people, for himself. And it's been successful because of that. So
That's so cool. That's so cool. Well, and I think what's cool about it too is even look at my life and my career and where I am now is not the end. And there are things that I'm still driving towards and a belief that I have of what I'm going to be doing in my life full time one day. And believing in yourself is a little scary. It can be very scary, right? Yeah. Because sometimes you may be the only person who actually believes it's possible.
And I'll say this, not to cut you off, but it's something you have to do every single day. Like you have to wake up and do it again and again and again. It's not something you just
every day. Yeah, man. I think one of the things, especially when you start branching out a little bit more on your own, one of the things that you have to realize is failure isn't final. Failure every day. Kobe Bryant says it, and I love the way he puts it. Every single day you wake up, the score is 0-0. Doesn't matter if you won yesterday. Doesn't matter if you lost yesterday. Today, the score is 0-0. And all we can do is compete today. And finding a lot of peace in not worrying about tomorrow and not being anchored in yesterday. I don't do it perfectly every day, but it has allowed me to be a lot more grateful for this thing we call the present. Right. And knowing that, look, all I can do today is to do my best. And at the end of the day, as long as I can go to sleep saying I've done the best I could, man, then tomorrow that's dust. It's mist. It's no longer exists. It's time to do it all over again. And I think it comes a little bit easier when you've learned through life experiences that things aren't going to be handed to you and it's not going to be easy and you're going to get kicked in the teeth. But I also think grit and resilience is a muscle that is built through choosing to be resilient and putting yourselves in positions to have to do really hard things so that you can learn you can handle hard things.
Let me ask you this, Jonathan, and I don't know, do you have any kids by the chance?
3. Yeah, 3.
So Matt and I talk about this all the time. What you just said there, I think, is imperative. You talked about the struggle that you had as a child, right? We didn't go into super details, not that we need to, but you felt like you went through struggle, and that probably shaped you to become the man that you are today. Matt had struggles as a child. I had struggles as a child. What we've noticed is that a lot of the most successful business people and entrepreneurs typically had to overcome something in their life, and they never felt like they were a part of like the normal process. And that's typically where people go really well into entrepreneurship. Now, knowing that, let's say we all know that it's true, that providing our kids with a soft, cushy life will create a challenge of them knowing how to overcome and adapt and to become the man that you've become because of what you went through. And do you factor that into your parenting? Do you factor in, like, even though I might be able to afford my kids a lack of struggle, I need to manufacture this struggle to make sure that they understand struggle is maybe one of the most important things for any child and young adult to have in their life?
Yeah, it's been really difficult learning how to be a parent that is able to provide a lot more to their kids than what was ever provided for them. And this is a conversation that me and a group of other guys and parents, we have a lot of conversation around this is how do you create that grit and that resilience and that mental and emotional toughness when there aren't those same challenges to overcome. That's, for me, I think that's where sports become incredibly important because, you know, I've got 3 kids. Our son, who's our middle child, we adopted him at 7 years old. He faced a lot of adversity before he came to be with us, but there's something between adversity that you have to go through that you don't really, to you, it's just life, right? Like as a kid, it was just life. I didn't look at it as this struggle. It was just how I lived every day. Choosing to play sports, that's chosen adversity. That's hard because it's also the easiest to quit, which we don't allow our kids to do. You make a commitment, your yes is a yes. You're gonna stick through that commitment no matter how hard it gets. We make our kids buy certain things that they want. If they want a nicer pair of shoes, then hey, look, there are ways that you can earn money in order to get those Jordans that you want. For me, being a coach of my oldest daughter, hey, I leave for practice at 6:30. If you're not in the truck at 6:30, you're gonna have to find a way to practice because I won't be late. And I think we give moments and opportunity for them to meet expectations. There's a little bit of grace there, but there's a quote. It says, soft men create soft times create soft men, or hard times create hard men create soft times. It's amazing to see that through.
Yeah. See it in our society right now.
And so I think my wife and I both very much so agree. We're going to give a lot of grace, but we're also going to make sure that our kids understand that we're not going to hold their hand forever, and they've got to learn how to. One of the greatest lessons I've seen my kids learn is my youngest daughter. She's 10. She's been dancing for several years since she was like 6 years old, loves to dance, and this year she decided she wanted to try out for the competitive dance team at her dance studio, and she worked her butt off. Hardest I've ever seen any of my kids work at achieving anything. And she's the youngest. And she went and tried out and she didn't make the team. Now, I'll tell you, as a dad, I wanted to go down there and make sure that those people knew that they must have made a mistake. I didn't. But one of the conversations I got to have with my daughter was that, hey, like, sometimes you can work really hard to achieve something and it's not going to work out. So the decision that you have to make now, even at 10 years old, is, did you go to dance all these years just so you could make a team? Or did you go to dance all of these years because you love dancing? Is not making this team going to keep you from loving dancing and continue to do it? Because if it does, then did you ever really love dance? And her decision was, I don't know if I'm going to try out next year, but I'm signing up for more dance classes. I'm doing more gymnastics stuff so I can get better on my tumbling skills and this stuff. And next year when tryouts come around, I'll make the decision of whether or not I'm going to go for it. And that, man, it was hard to watch her go through that emotional pain, but seeing her heart shift to, it was never about making the competitive team. It was because I love dance and I just wanted to do more of it, and nothing's going to steal that joy. Gosh, that, like, what a great lesson she gets to learn at 10 years old.
Yeah, the day started at 0 for her as soon as she got rejected, right? And it's like, now what do you do from there? It's one of those things, you never want your child to go through heartbreak, but you're excited to see what they do in response to that heartbreak, right? And I think that's an amazing story, and I'm glad that she's stuck with it and said, okay, cool. Because I mean, we could always go back to the Michael Jordan high school story, right? We can always go back to that. He did not make the JV team in his high school time, and to then become, well, it's arguable now, I guess, that
The
he's
greatest ever.
Yeah, exactly. It's not arguable, but
It's not
somehow
arguable.
somebody under
The
the age of
greatest
30
ever.
will say that. I don't know. Matt's close to there, so he might make the argument LeBron's better. I don't know. Unarguably the best ever, right? He had that point where he woke up in the day and the score was 0, and he made the decision to get better every day. And at the end of the day, for me, it's not about the outcome. It's about the pitch, the pace, or the attitude. It's what can you control inside of it to get the outcome. If you can, in 5-10 minutes, share with us maybe what you feel like you're doing differently, why it's working, and maybe something that we could learn from that.
Yeah, so in the industry that I work in, especially heavy manufacturing, robotics, engineering, marketing has been the exact same from the very beginning. It's, let me tell you about our equipment. Let me tell you about the bells and whistles and features and benefits and the speeds. And you just see tons of companies like ours and other adjacent companies that we all work with or integrate their equipment, that everything's the exact same, and it's just boring and it sucks and it doesn't actually connect with anybody. It doesn't generate conversation. And so for us, when I was approached for this role and they were like, hey, we want you to take over sales and marketing, I said, that's fine. I'm open to that conversation. Just know I have an idea around how we're going to do marketing, and it's going to be different than how anybody has ever done it in our industry. And people probably aren't going to understand it at first. You probably won't understand it at first, but I promise you it will work. And so what we doubled down on and really tripled down on was content, and not just content around the equipment, but content around the people, giving behind the scene looks, making shorts, making reels, talking about the industry, and even now putting a lot of our marketing effort into helping our own people within the organization start to find their voice and to put themselves out there more and to be more visible so that they can build more familiarity with their ideal customers. And in the last 6 months, just from stuff that we're doing on LinkedIn and through the website, all the vanity metrics have gone through the window, which I care little about. It's a little bit of data that you can use to help you make decisions, but we've actually been able to start really generating some really cool conversations with customers. And when we get leads in, it's not just these random people coming to our website because they think we may be able to help. It's actually real people that are coming to us through LinkedIn or even Instagram or TikTok or our website because they're seeing our content and we're being more human with it. There's a book, and I can't remember the author. It's over here on my shelf, and I'll bleep out the first word, but it's F content marketing is what it says. And it's such a great book and such a great read. And really what it exemplified to me was we make content based on this huge net that we're trying to cast versus trying to have one-to-one conversations with the people who can actually buy, benefit, or influence from our stuff. And so we create our content buckets of stuff that we're making to speak directly to plant managers, engineering managers, operations managers. We're making blogs and articles and playbooks to help those people make decisions and meet them wherever they are in their buyer's journey. A lot of people in our industry, they try to find that 2% of the market that are ready to buy right now. And while we want to build familiarity with those people, we also want to help the other 98% of the market make it through their journey, being their Yoda or their Alfred or somebody like that, to where we can help be that guide so they can make the best possible decision for them. And so once we started changing that approach, it's being announced this month that we are one of Inc. 5000's fastest growing systems integrators in North America this year. And so we're getting that award, and a lot of it has just been because we've become a lot more present and our content is starting to connect a little bit differently. Like I made a freaking video talking about Cremo shave razors where I'm literally like covering myself up with like overlays on this video of me naked in the shower shaving my head with their products. But like just stuff like that, we've decided as an organization that we want to not only start talking to the customers we can serve, but also the brands that we love and we use. And because we love and use them, we want to help them if there's any way that we can help. And the only way to let them know that is by putting it out there that we love their stuff and doing it in a way that's entertaining and educational and hopefully helps bring some value to the people who need to make some decisions on whether or not to invest in that type of stuff.
I think it's an important distinction here. How much of this content that you make is you trying to sell something for you just trying to educate from something or just talk? Exactly. I think that's
Zero.
what people miss up is that they're like, "All right, I need to make sure I have my sales pitch in here. I need to make sure I have these links to sign up. I need to make sure I do all this stuff." And it's just like, hey, just help. I mean, Gary Vee talks about it a lot. I mean, he's obviously a big name on that, but it's really just build this content. And Alex Ramosi, Matt jokes with me about what I bring up all the time. But it's like
he likes this part of Alex Ramosi.
Uh-huh.
yeah. But make your free stuff so good that their paid stuff looks terrible. And so it just gives. And that's the thing is you give and give. I read the book called The Go Giver, which I think is a really great book.
Todd Berg,
Yeah.
great dude. I literally just gave that book, The Go Giver, to all of my team to read so that they could have a better understanding of why I lead the way that I do.
It's a great book.
Great freaking book.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's like you just give. And you give and you give and you give. And like when that happens, and actually I just watched a video of some guy I was talking about. He said the people who are the most charitable make the most money. Like it's like
Customer service content.
Yeah.
Like I heard that term once, customer service content, and it's literally just content that like give people the answers. In that book, F Content Marketing, it says 82% of B2B decision makers will respond to cold outreach if they've consumed content that brings relevant and valuable meaning to their organization or role. We just market by the numbers. If that's what decision makers like to see and they're more apt to starting a conversation because content brings value, then let's bring more value than anybody else thinks we can freaking bring. It's not the short game. That's the biggest challenge that even in executing our mission here from a marketing standpoint is you got to have some patience because it's not the short game. This is the long game. This is eHarmony, not Tinder. Like we're looking to build relationships, not swipe right for a one-night stand. That's transactional selling. I want zero part of it. And so our marketing should reflect that, and marketing and sales, the way we team together, the way we're co-creating content together that speaks to our customers, I think is very unique. But I think it's because of my sales background that I bring into that. I believe you're going to see a shift in our industry and how people are making content. And I'm hoping we make a good enough impact that it inspires some other companies like ours to start communicating to their customers differently.
Yeah, I'm sure you're probably one of the only people in your industry that does a lot of content like that, which I think is awesome. It's the way to go. And I can't tell you how many people that I bought from just because I've watched their content so much that they've helped me with certain things that when they have something to sell, I'm like, I trust you. I agree with whatever you've helped me so much so already. I'll go ahead and buy this from you.
You've given me so much already. I don't like using it this way, but there's a sales coach and a guy that I follow, and he says when you give them so much without ever asking for anything, there's almost this feeling of obligation people get that when there is an opportunity to buy something, they want to because they feel like they've already got so much from you, they want to give something back. And that's never the intention. But if that's the outcome, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Like let's that's gravy, baby. Let's roll.
Oops.
Yeah, like I'm for it. So
Well, perfect, Jonathan. Let me ask you this. I mean, so obviously you have a large social media presence. You're trying to continue to expand that. For anybody who's watching this, where's the best place for them to find you?
number one platform that I use is LinkedIn. I've invested so many years of building some pretty great relationships there, and it blows my mind that so many people choose to follow me on that platform. I'm so grateful for it. But that's a majority of where you're going to find me, and then TikTok is probably the second place. You might see a lot of the same content because I don't segregate my content based on platform. Like my messaging may be a little different in the copy, but what you're going to see on TikTok, you're going to see on LinkedIn. And I'm always open for a conversation, somebody to pick my brain, struggling with something. So feel free to reach out. I do my best to respond as quickly as possible.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much, Jonathan. I mean, it's been an awesome conversation. Matt thoroughly enjoyed it for sure. He smiled the entire. But thank you so much for your time, Jonathan. If there anything else you want to shout out before we roll here?
No, you guys are awesome. You guys do a great job, and thank you so much for having me on. And for introducing me to your audience. I'm really grateful and really appreciate it.
Jonathan, if anybody got anything out of this like we did, please like, subscribe, comment, share, hit the bell icon. So when we drop our podcast every Friday, you get an alert about it so you can watch it. Jonathan, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, buddy.